Hey there, dragons! It's Paige here with your weekly Thunder Index, where we discuss all things science, storms, stars, and sustainability. Welcome back to our last week of sustainability episodes. Last week, we began our conversation about environmental law, specifically touching on the Paris Agreement and its ramifications from around the world. But even though we have an international agreement protecting the Earth, who is making these changes, how are we making these changes, and who is regulating it? In the United States, we are lucky to have an entire governing organization revolving our environment. Remember the EPA, or the Environmental Protection Agency? This is the organization controlled by the US government that makes US laws that regulates the human health and the environment. Now, this spans anywhere from pollution control to drinking water management. What is so amazing is that this agency was created from social push for care of the environment and in part from creation of Earth Day. In the 1960s and 70s, there were so many factors that led and pushed people to believe and care for the environment. Some of the very obvious was the pollution that was being created in factory towns, which was like pretty much everywhere in the US. Rivers, yes, the things made of water, were catching on fire because of how many chemicals were in them. Inner cities were filled with smog, making it uncomfortable to breathe. And finally, people in the science community started to realize what great harm we were doing to our environment. One of the biggest advocates for environmental law, and one of the first, was Rachel Carson. She was a female biologist, writer, and ecologist in the early 1900s. How cool is that? She was born in 1907, and her most notable work, which is now famous in US law, was published 2 years before her death in 1964. Being an ecologist, Carson saw some awful things that factories were producing as waste, and she decided to write about it. She was able to get a 3-part series in The New Yorker in 1962. Why The New Yorker? Well, she was very strategic, and she knew that sitting President John F. Kennedy read this paper every day. This series was then condensed and published as a book later that summer in August of 1962. The book was titled Silent Spring. The book called out 3 main things. The first was large chemical companies for their mistreatment of the environment. It also called out citizens for not caring about the longevity of the land that they live on. But most of all, she blamed the government for allowing this kind of harm to its citizens and its property. This work is over 400 pages of stories and research that Carson has gathered over 6 years. She was trying to get people to believe her in order to save the planet. This book was an instant bestseller and became the talking points of many households, which in turn pushed environmental issues up in the political agenda. Like we explained in our Earth Day video, Earth Day was a result of public opinion changing. Carson's book and the recent moon landing were 2 things that were really large components of getting these things in motion. So the rest is history. There were people that cared about an issue, they got other people to care, and the government had to listen. Just like social issues we see today. So now we have the EPA, which controls toxins in building materials, all waste and byproducts that come from manufacturing, and much, much more. People's entire professions are now dedicated to the study of environmental law and the upholding or change of environmental law. Though having regulations that protect our environment help all living things on this planet, it does not help all living things financially. The biggest opposers of environmental laws today are large manufacturing companies. Just by these companies existing, they create pollution. This is where environmental engineers come in. One section of environmental engineering deals with how these companies can still function and produce less harmful toxins in the process. Many engineers are trying to create more carbon sequestering technologies, especially for those large smokestacks that you see spewing endless amounts of smoke into the air. This is because it's the greenhouse gases that are released when burning carbon-based substances that create climate change. The biggest problem with this solution right now is that this kind of technology is very expensive. A study by MIT found that it may cost coal power plants up to $330,000 per megawatt to install controls for particulate matter. This means for a typical plant producing 500 megawatts, it could cost more than $107 million to install controls at a newly built plant. And it could cost $165 million to retrofit an existing facility. As you can see, we have come a long way since the 1960s in terms of recognition of environmental preservation. but we still have a very long way to go. So if you're interested in helping the environment, there are so many things that you can do. You could be a lawyer, you could be a scientist, and you could even be an engineer. But even better, you could just be an advocate and lead by example. Join us next week when we talk about all things recycling. Because really, do we actually know how recycling works? But before we say goodbye, I want to leave you with positive images of clouds, not those gross chemically filled ones from factories. Today's cloud of the week is a lenticular cloud. These clouds are pretty cool. They often look like a lens or a saucer. These clouds have an altitude of up to 40,000 feet and are typically a visible sign of mountain waves in the air. So if you see a mountain and you see a saucer-shaped cloud above it, that is a lenticular cloud. On the ground, they can result in very strong gusty winds in one place. A fun fact about lenticular clouds, unlike most clouds that are carried along by the wind, these clouds appeared fixed in space. They never move from the spot where they were formed. The waves which cause these lenticular clouds are called standing waves because they remain the same distance from the mountain, even though the air itself is moving along at a considerable speed. And since the waves remain fixed in position, so too do the clouds which form at their crest. These clouds are called the lenticular clouds because they have thin and sometimes pointed ends with a thicker and broader center, resulting in a cross-section similar to that of an optical lens, rather like an almond, in fact. Okay, but the coolest part about lenticular clouds is they have an optical deception. If you look at one of these clouds, it is not the same cloud you see all the time. Okay, so follow me on this. The cloud is constantly being formed again and again on the windward side as the moisture condenses from the rising air and disappearing on the lee side as the air descends and reabsorbs the water droplets traveling with it. So basically, these water droplets are just being reabsorbed, creating a new cloud constantly. So if you see one cloud and it's lenticular, and you go away and you come back after 15 minutes, it may look the same, but it's probably a different cloud. And that, dragons, is all of these science, storms, stars, and sustainability that I have for you this week. It is always thundering in Philadelphia. I'll see you next week.
I miss Dance Dance Revolution. I love that game. Hi, I'm Lizzy Friedman, this is Inside Ambition, and you're on 34th and Art, the intersection for all things arts and entertainment in and around Drexel University. You know what's up first. It's a pop culture moment. Entertainment Weekly released an inside look at their Pride Month edition magazine covers, featuring SNL star Bowen Yang, Pose goddess MJ Rodriguez, Master of None actor Lena Waithe, and rock star himself, whom I keep talking about, but I'm not that big of a fan of. I mean, he's great, but I'm not a huge fan. Lil Nas X. Pride Month doesn't really start until June, but I'm living for this early celebration. Now this week, we're taking a look at Dance on Film, a Drexel dance event. And I'm not talking Footloose, people. This is the real deal. Dirty dancing? More like Drexel dancing. If only Patrick Swayze was here. We all know that live performances have taken a hiatus for some well-known reasons, and film has taken precedence. But the world keeps spinning, and so do our dancers, as the dance department has adapted to create a fully filmed dance concert. Both the Dance Ensemble and Fresh Dance have taken on this challenge. Adapting to a new medium and setting was a challenge for both dancers and videographers. Featuring 9 dancers, the dance film concert premieres on Thursday, May 20th at 7 p.m. and will be available for online streaming. Choreographers include Philadelphia dance artists, Drexel alum, and faculty. The film will also be shown during Drexel's outdoor spring performance called Sights of Dance on the weekend of June 3rd, which is happening all around campus, and it's a little tour you can take and see all these different sights of dance. It's very cool. Make sure to get your tickets online to find out if Alex's beloved crush, Mario, will be there. And today we're joined by Olive Prince, Dance Ensemble and Fresh Dance Director, as well as Adjunct Professor here at Drexel University to talk more about the Dance on Film concert. Thanks so much for joining us today, Olive.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so jumping right into it, talking about Dance on Film, what was it like to create an interdisciplinary event like this one?
This has been tremendous. It's been really rich and rewarding because it's a totally new experience for most people involved. Most of the students have never been in a dance film. Many of the choreographers have never worked in this medium. And we had the opportunity to collaborate with three internationally known video artists. So it was really this collaborative effort that emerged amongst all the artists and has just been really, really rewarding. But it's also had, it's sort of crazy ups and downs. We had anticipated that we would be done with our filming by winter break. And of course, we were barely halfway through because we had so many, COVID complications that arose. So we probably, I would say, out of 9 pieces, all but 3 had changes in schedule repeatedly.
Wow.
So it was quite a that was quite a feat, but it really, I found it quite moving to witness what the students were willing to do to be able to make a final product that, 1, they were proud of, 2, they were like so invested in being a part of, and 3, just desiring our art form, which is really not necessary to be in one room together. But we really enjoy that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I totally understand that. As a student myself, I mean, I would also jump at the opportunity to get into a room and do things like for real and not just in my bedroom.
Yeah.
So that's really awesome. I mean, obviously not with all the complications, but the fact that you were able to still bring it all together and be able to work around all of those things and make light of the situation and create something so new out of this weird circumstance.
Yeah, I mean, it's the dancers, so weekly, like you've been experiencing as a student, they would show up for rehearsal, for these 2-hour rehearsals on Zoom in their bedroom, like they're doing with their technique classes as well. But what was amazing to me, so they did that for maybe 8 to 10 weeks, depending, some of them a little bit longer as things got pushed back. But when we entered the theater space or the site-specific space where they were filming, within a 4 to 5 hour time period, most of those pieces had fully been realized and culminated. Granted, they didn't take their film form, that's a whole different process of making, but some of them were ready to be seen in a stage format if it needed to be. So that to me was just awe inspiring and so motivating to see what did happen over Zoom and what translated, and then how when we got into the space together, everyone could just step into it and step up to it, and really live in the art that they worked really hard at. In it's not fun to dance in your bedroom, but to be in the space together was really, really worth it. So that was cool.
Yeah, right. That's really incredible. Yeah. Do you think there will be space in the dance world to keep going on further with dance on film even after the pandemic is over?
Absolutely. It's an art form that's been around. It's not new. We didn't invent it. So that is here to stay. And I hope that dance ensemble can stay invested in it. What we have, what's really cool is, dance exists outside of the theater all the time. That is, that's part of dance. So that's a normal thing. So to have students experience that is really just at a professional caliber of work, and they need to experience more of that. There's no reason they shouldn't be. We even teach a screen dance class on campus for students and filmmakers. And, dance is larger than sort of what we think. It's the human body, it's the human spirit. So I feel like people interested in film, even there's, to have practice practitioners of their body moving in space. Like there's so many interesting things you can do with that. And I think we just like tapped on its door. So I hope we keep opening it up.
Yeah, and I think that also, of course, with it being on film, it makes it just a lot more accessible. A lot more students can now come and watch the event, whereas maybe they might have not been able to get to the Mandel Theater to watch a dance event or something like that. So I think that that was also very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're like, you can also digest them in different ways as compared to like, going and sitting for a 2-hour dance concert. Like this will still probably be 90 to 100 minutes in length for all 9 pieces, but you could watch a 12-minute piece and, then come back to it and watch 2 more pieces or something like that. And you could also dialogue with your friend who was in it, and hear more about the backstory and watch it twice. Like there's all different ways to sort of consume dance in this medium, which is really rich.
It's very digestible. You can consume like a 9-minute piece and maybe it's a little heavy and you don't really want to watch more. So then you take a break and then you maybe watch another one another day. Yeah. So it's definitely very helpful in that way.
Right. And bringing like art into people's living rooms as sort of, I feel like as artists, we frequently like don't want to go there. Like it feels like cheapening the process or something, but I feel like it's not true, and it's just where we're at in this sort of technological age. I think there's a lot of cool things we can do in bringing technology and dance together. But why shouldn't we be in a living room, and why shouldn't we be seen with your grandmother and your friends and whoever else? So yeah, we're excited about this.
Yeah, very true. So I know you touched on it a little bit earlier, but what were some unexpected challenges in kind of creating the event?
One, I mean, obviously like the unknown, which was why I decided to go with this sort of format. I didn't want to make something that was pretending to be something. And like if we can't be in the theater together, like then we need to do something else and switch the lens and like make it exciting. That was great. What was challenging about that was that there was a time constraint and a pressure to putting it together because we only had the 3 to 4 days of filming. So I feel like that sort of play process that's essential to the creative process, between what you're seeing in the film and the video and the screening and the choreographer, there wasn't a lot of room for play. Also, it's like social distancing while dancing, while filming. Like, I continually felt like, oh my God, how much more can I ask these choreographers and dancers to have to like take out of their process? Like you can't touch, you have to keep 6 feet distance, you have to keep 12 feet distance if we're exerting, you have to, all these things. But what's cool about that is as soon as we invite limitations into our creative process, new answers emerge that you wouldn't have normally done. And then we're flourishing, we're like finding new things. We're tapping into different parts of ourselves. We're having fun. And also like not seeing everything and anything until those days, like it all, but I love that. Like to me, that's exciting. I don't know if everybody feels that way. I think that causes anxiety for some people too, but I like the improvisational making and parts that have to happen. So
yeah, that's super interesting. And I really like your point of how having these limitations lets you tap into a different side of your creativity and a different part of your brain and find new solutions that you wouldn't think of before. And maybe like those new things will stick even after like these limitations are gone. So I think that's really great.
Yeah. And I hope also like inspire the students to think about what's possible rather than thinking about what's impossible. Like we could approach this whole thing as like, oh God, we're done, or we can be like, what's left? What can we do? What's possible? And what's real? Like to me, there was still sort of like real intimacy in shared experience and shared physicality, even though we were masked, even though we were spatially distant, all of these things. But there's some sort of truth in the visceral body experience that holds true.
Yeah, that's a lovely outlook. Well, yeah. Well, I have one last question for you. What are you most excited about sharing with the viewing?
I guess I'm most excited for like the dancers and the community to see how what they did shifts and transforms into this art form that lives on the screen and in film. Like how, they didn't really, in the process, I could see what the angles were of the film and that the videographer was taking and how different it is. But they haven't gotten to see any of that yet. So I'm just really excited for them to, you're like experiencing like a piece of it, but they haven't got to experience the wholeness of it. So I'm excited for the people that have been inside it to actually experience it first and foremost, and to like take pride and honor in that. And I'm excited for, the sort of outside world to see what great dance happens at Drexel University across majors, across disciplines. There are students from all over campus dancing in dance ensemble and fresh dance, and they're committing themselves to it in an extraordinary time and sort of, deserve our recognition for the hard work they're doing. So the dance film concert will be open to the public on our website starting May 20th. But then we are also doing Sights of Dance, which is a student-driven choreography that's happening outside around campus. There's 7 student choreographers who are making little things, and the audience takes a walking tour to see all the dances. And that happens June 3rd through the 6th. And then the film will happen outdoors after that at the Urban Annex Yard at 8:30, like sort of like a movie under the stars. So
very cool.
2 different ways to experience it.
Well, thank you so much, Olive, for joining us today and talking a little bit more about the event. Again, I'm so excited to watch, and I hope other dragons will come and watch as well.
We will. Thanks, Lizzy. I appreciate what you're doing.
Dragons, come out and support our fellow dancers at their event. All the information on where it is and how to get there will be down below. It's really so amazing to continue to see how art adapts and changes with technology and world crises. And now, before we go, I have a little recommendation for y'all. Now, this one's for all my podcast listeners. Now, this podcast might not really be about art, but it still is entertainment. At the Pass is a podcast all about the ins and outs of the food service industry. As a person who has worked in food service as my side hustle since I was 17, I can tell you that it's a wild ride. So 2 lovely ladies I know, Doria and Aislinn, have created their own podcast to sit down and talk a little bit about the biz. Check them out wherever you stream your podcasts and follow them on Instagram at the Pass Podcast. At the Pass Podcast. That's a mouthful. Thanks so much for joining us here on 34th and Art. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at inside_ambition. Subscribe to us on YouTube for all the latest. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all of the above, etc. and beyond. I'll see you right here at the same address next week. Bye for now.
Hi, welcome back to Drexel Update here on Inside Ambition. I'm Emily McAndrews. Before we start, make sure that you go ahead and like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be talking with the incoming Vice President of Latinos for a United Campus, Luis Benitez. Hi, Luis, how are you?
Hi, Emily. Nice. I'm very good, and thank you for having me today.
Great. So I guess to start off, tell us a little bit about who you are.
So my name is Luis Benitez. I am an entertainment arts management major at Drexel. I'm concentrating on film and television, and I have a minor at legal studies. I'm a second-year student. I like exploring the city, and I like meeting people. So if you see me on campus, just like say hi. I'm super friendly and I like meeting people overall.
Great. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your organization and what you aim to do here on campus?
So Latinos for United Campus, or LUC, is a Drexel organization that prides itself in Latinx representation and inclusion across the board. LUC pushes to get Drexel through through various social and educational programming for anyone, regardless of their race. And for the last few months, we've been kind of busy, with a little thing called COVID. We've had to be a little bit creative, and that's why we've made activities such as the spring, like the term check-ins and movie nights, and most recently we started with Spanish hours and game nights.
Great. So why don't you explain a little bit about what the Spanish hours are?
So Spanish Hours is a recent initiative that my friend Laura and I came up with during winter term. I remember that we're both Spanish speakers, and I remember that one of the things we used to like talk about when we first got here was about how we barely got to like talk with people that spoke Spanish, and it was sort of frustrating because for us, we just wanted to express ourselves in our native tongue, and so we got into LUC on last fall through like Zoom and all of that, and we noticed that like still like the organization didn't provide that space, and it wasn't until last winter that I told Laura, hey, like, do you remember that do you remember how like do you remember that frustration we had during freshman year? Let's just make an event or let's just make like a weekly thing based on that, and that's like how that happened, and it's been pretty fun. We've been surprised on how many people have been able to come and just relax and just talk about it, because for those that don't know, Spanish Hours is just a space with two different sections. You can go to the beginner section where like if you're just taking like Spanish 101 or like a basic Spanish class, you can just come and express yourself in your name, and like you can practice your Spanish, in other words. Or you can go to the more like the advanced session where people like myself and Laura or like any native speaker can just come and just talk in Spanish and rant, because we know that there are probably like good things you want to talk about, but also like hardships that we collectively pass through as people from Drexel. And so we just thought that providing that space was really important, and we just had to do it like as soon as possible. And we're very happy with the results we've had during this spring term.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, it sounds like it's a successful initiative that you guys have had, but also just like overall really rewarding no matter what you're going into it for. So I think that that's something really great that you guys are doing.
For the future, I think that we really want to do it. We really want for Spanish Hours to be like a staple of LUC. And it's very likely that for the fall, from the fall onward, we're just going to make it into like an in-person office hour so that people can just talk to us and just touch bases with us if they really wanted to.
Great. So, what are some other things that LUC has been doing? Obviously, with COVID, it brings its own new challenges with it, but what are some things that you've been doing here on campus?
So for LUC, it's very interesting because for a while now, LUC wasn't as active. I think that it wasn't until 2017 or 2018 that the club reignited and started like just rolling. And thanks to like past presidents, we've been able to form like the current representation we have. And as of now, we're just trying different events out because we do want those staple events for our organization. I think the most recent and biggest event we've had on campus pre-COVID, it was Dia de los Muertos. We did it in the main building. People went there. You had salsa. We had some traditional West African dancers, and it was just a blast overall. But besides that, it's mostly like small get-togethers. We also did a panel on immigration that was a while back too, and through COVID, like I said, we're just doing like spring check-ins. We're doing term check-ins. I'm just thinking of like the last one we did spring. We also we're also doing movie nights. We saw, I think the first one was Coco, and then we saw Wonder Woman 1984 for Christmas, for December of last year. And we're also doing game nights where I think we played Among Us and Jackbox and all sorts of games. And we're actually going to have another game night this coming Friday, the 30th.
Awesome. So what do you think has been probably one of your favorite parts of being a part of this organization?
For me, is just finally having the chance to say that I have a family away from home. I'm from San Juan, Puerto Rico. I'm a very proud Puerto Rican. And I remember coming here to Drexel and I just felt very alone, very isolated because, like Latinos aren't like Puerto Ricans or Latinos overall aren't like the majority of students here. And it wasn't until I found this organization that I told myself, hey, like maybe like I can connect with these people. And I'm super happy that I have been able to connect with them. Beyond that sense of family, I also feel very proud of myself for being an active and positive voice for Latinx representation. And I think that I'm super proud with the current team and the future team that's going to be joining me and future President Laura Rendon Garcia next term, because I do think that everyone on that board and on the club overall really wants to push that diversity and really wants to put the Latinx name out there.
That's great. I'm really glad that you were able to, really find your place here. That's one of the hardest parts of going away to school, is really kind of finding your home and where you belong. So I'm really glad that you were able to have that opportunity. So for any students who want to get involved with LUC, how can they do so?
Just go to events, follow us on Instagram at LUC Drexel, and just let yourself be known and talk to any of us if you want. Just go to any of our events. We'll be happy to talk with you. Again, I'm super friendly. Like everyone's on the board is super friendly. Like you'll just have a good time.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It was really a pleasure getting to speak with you today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for having me overall.
And that's it for Drexel Update. Make sure that you go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can follow us on Instagram at inside_ambition. And make sure to check us out on Twitter and TikTok at Inside Ambition. See you next time.